Good evening then, ladies and gentlemen across the world. Welcome aboard to WOR, and this is the Legacy Division. We are in for what potentially could be a cataclysmic result ahead of us here live from the Temple of Speed in Monza. It is myself, James Otter Jotta, none other than alongside Bobberts here tonight, your co-commentary pairing for what will be, no doubt, potentially a interesting set of events ahead of us. We'll go through all of the usual gubbins a little bit later on, Bobberts. We've got 10 seconds to go before we get on with the sprint race here. Very quickly, thanks for being alongside of this one. SCI Cup of Champions tonight.
Indeed, obviously there's a fair few things and few permutations that will have to go their way. Obviously, I think they have to outscore by at least 19 points to wrap it up here tonight. But obviously, we've got obviously the sprint race and the actual main feature race itself for them to try and do that. Anything can happen, but obviously let's get underway around this legendary Monza circuit. One of my personal favourites, Jota. Hopefully it's the same for you, or else words will be said.
Yeah, no, it is one of my favourites, just simply because of the pure speed of Temple of Speed, of course. Just following Matteo at the moment. Actually, ET8 both at the back of the field, going through into turn 1, turn 2, but suggesting it might be a bit more on the higher downforce for these, as well as Matteo still only in P16 at the moment as the ET8 man. Why don't we take a little trip up to the front, actually, because the fastest of anyone so far, would you believe, actually, is Seeb, the IRT man. Now, of course, we are just a couple of corners in. Let's see what the first set of chicane is going to be like here. And he's looking pretty strong, actually, against Sergio, looking relatively decent as they go into the first of the Lesmos. And you want to try and keep it nice and cool, nice and easy. Kevin Zunberg looking pretty sharp as well, up in P2, but now beaten to P3 again by Fano Spinoda. Tony Reich through SCI in P5 at the moment. This one, Matteo is climbing the rankings. He's now up to 6th after being all the way down in P17 only at turn 3. Seeb will following him here. Oh, he might extend it. He certainly has extended. So IRT were on for a pole position for the sprint race here. Actually going to be relegated. It could be a Ventauri front row lockout as it stands, as they head through to where else but the infamous Parabolica corner. Leon and Fano Spinoda looking very sharp indeed. David looking very good for FRT as well, as he then heads his way down towards the start finishing line. Where are they going to be planted when they come across the line? Matteo has managed to sneak into P2, but Ventauri have done it. They're on pole.
Indeed, Ventauri have certainly done it and managed to hold them there just at the last grasp, the last death, or last breath, let's just say, not last death, that's the complete wrong thing. But yeah, Leon just about hangs on there by less than 400s, but look at that. Top 4 separated by 63 1,000ths of a second. You can't get much closer than that. It was almost the perfect sprint qualifying here for VNT, but still, first and third is by no means a shabby performance. That is exactly what they would have wanted. But obviously, where are the main protagonists? Obviously, Matteo there in P2, Sergio in P5, so good qualifying for the pair of them, whereas SCI languishing in the midfield.
Languishing in the midfield for this one, but we know that the midfield, the sprint merchants have been ET8 in this one. A quick note on that one as well. They really need to earn the points here tonight because it could all be wrapped up. The standings are pretty straight up and running as it stands. It's a 722 points. It's a 127 point difference between them and ET8 here tonight. Shazoo could win it. They just need to outscore over the event ET8 by 19 points, and they will become champions. It's a gap of 146 overall as a result. And then you cross down to Ventauri, 260. Future Racing Team are only 2 points behind as well. It's a very, very tight-knit battle for P3 in the standings. It's a lucrative position, P3 as well, so they will continue to fight it out. AMR on 181 have managed to extend their gap over IRT and EVR on 141. And then down at the rest of the field, QRT have managed to finally get above Hadric Racing, and they're now at the foot of the table on 93, or pardon me, sorry, TF10 rather, have managed to get off at the foot of the field. They've actually overtaken QRT for 9th place overall as a result of a great race win last time out. More about last week in just a few short moments, because we are going to have to go back to the live stream, and it's getting a little bit overcast out there, Bobberts.
It certainly is. Whether or not any rain is due in this, it probably isn't likely. I mean, what is this? It's a 9-lap sprint race we've got here for you all, but I'd be quietly confident if there was any rain, actually, for some drivers. Obviously, a lot of them do, or some of them do excel more in the wet than they do in the dry conditions, but obviously, we know what drivers do. You know, they practice in the dry. They don't really do any wet practice at all because it is, well, I'm not going to say it's unlikely that it could happen. It could happen at any given moment, but nonetheless, we're going to be hopefully watching 9 fantastic laps here by these drivers. So obviously, it's a bit of a shame, as you mentioned there, for Seeb, who was looking very good initially early on, and now he's only qualified, was it P18, P19, one of 3 drivers not to set a lap time. So they have it all to do, but well, to try and get a few minor points, let's just say, and see, obviously try and get themselves set up for the main race later.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing to keep an eye out on as well as FRT here tonight. David has been on fire, has the Polish man himself. He's looking very sharp alongside Samuel Barker here for FRT. We're only a couple of points behind Ventauri, but Ventauri have got that little foot at the moment on pace just in the sprint race alone, of course, with that pole position from the team represented in the Oracle Red Bull Racing outfit. Certainly going to be looking forward to seeing what they have got in mind for this big sprint race, of course, because every point is going to count. It's the final sprint race of this season as well. You know, from a mindset perspective here, you're a racer yourself, well, not for very long as well, Boberts, but with the racing mindset yourself, you know, when you've got to look at this one, final sprint race, you want to go flat out, surely.
Yeah, certainly that's what you want to do, but the drivers are already going, so let's quit that. There's the 5 red lights are already on here for us, so let's get on with it.
Let's get on with it.
And away we go.
And we are in a sprint in Italy. Now, I got caught out a little bit there because it looked like we went straight on board with someone, which is very weird, but either way, Leon doing a decent job here to actually defend from Matteo. The Hogs straight down the middle line. A little bit of tap in there as ETA is sensing that they need to get every point they can, but they don't want to risk it too much. We do have yellow flags waved in the first sector. Slow cars there. I think we've lost potentially Simbarox 1 and AMS Gergo. That is the representation for QRT in the Williams Mercedes. Ventauri looking very sharp. Here's Fana Spinoda trying to put pressure on Matteo, but in the end not looking too sharp for that particular one there. In the end, David managing to hold on for P4. Sergio up to P5. This is a good result so far for ETA, but with 8 laps to go and everyone getting a little bit more on the aggressive side, anything can happen. It usually does.
It certainly usually does. The one thing I'm interested in is looking at the tyre strategy, and Sergio has decided to go for the soft compounded tyres, which will probably just about hang on for 9 laps here. I mean, it will be difficult, but he should be able to get that done. But obviously wanted to try and maybe gain a few places off the start there. Didn't quite get it done. I did see a bit of end plate damage flying off going to the second chicane there. Not too sure who it was. It was languishing down the mid to latter end of the pack, as it were, so I'll have to find out, see who that was. He was going to be struggling coming through, obviously, the middle sector through Ascari, now through Parabolica Corner. But either way, Leon maintained his pole position and race lead. He leads the end of the first lap, going to lap 2, but he's got Matteo all over him. But Fana Spinoda will try and make it a VNT 1-2 if he can, to try and extend their gap over FRT.
Yeah, he will sense that they've got to get this one done at Ventauri because they want to try and get the one up over FRT, especially considering Samuel Barker's lowly position of P15, as we've got someone down, and I think it's TF10. Tiago has gone for a spin at turn number 1. You may have seen it.
Yes, I did, yeah, just got completely clattered there by, I couldn't quite see which car it was, but got completely clattered, sent round into a spin, and yeah, not his own doing, I think, looking at it, but either way, unfortunately, that's Tiago now down to P17. 2 drivers there on the back, Wads and Simbox 1 going for wing changes, and obviously just try and make it to the end of the session. Just going aboard with the SCI drivers, who have actually gained places up to P7 and P8, but Harone has got an end plate missing on the left-hand side there, so maybe it was his end plate that I saw fly off potentially on the first lap, so he's going to have a bit of downforce issues, especially with the rear, but at least he's got his teammate behind him as a rear gunner.
Yeah, potentially could be causing some significant issues actually with those that front wing, especially as you're thinking, I'm thinking Ascari, I'm thinking Parabolica, and I'm even thinking as well the Variante de la Rogier chicane. You're going to struggle a little bit with that missing end plate. Maybe they may decide to release Tony Reich in this one. Now remember folks, in the sprint race there is a mandatory pit stop, so everyone does have to commit to a pit stop at some point in this race, and we're seeing people very early getting off of these medium tyres, potentially to strap on a set of soft tyres. Both Wads and Simbarox 1 have done exactly that, but will the undercut be powerful enough, I wonder? Wads was around 24 seconds back from the likes of Tiago. The question, is he going to be able to get the jump and join his RSC teammate up in P16? That is Luke himself on a medium tyre. Kevin Thunberg critically has decided to switch to a set of hards.
Yeah, I just saw that myself and I'm thinking, is that right, or are my eyes actually deceiving me? But no, he has gone to the hard tyres. I mean, yeah, they'll be good in race trim when they get up to speed, but not for the sprint race. That's a bit of a weird one there for Kevin Thunberg, unless he knows a weird strategy or potential strategy that might actually work for him. Let's wait and see. But there is certainly a queue now forming behind Harone here. He's trying to stick within the DRS of his teammate, which he's just about done so. But yeah, the second SCI car certainly struggling in these early stages. May have to be the first driver to make a pit stop to try and negate or minimise the damage caused. Out in front, Matteo has actually now taken the lead away from Leon, and David there in P3 in close proximity. The top 4 have a 2.3 second gap over the rest of the field.
Yeah, Otzazito there, that's the AMR driver looking to try to get this one done. Matteo is in Leon is in. Critically, they've decided to pit Tony Reich first, despite the issue with the front wing for the SCI Eurone. They've decided to pit Tony Reich anyway. So leading driver so far, people that yet to make their pit stop. David for FRT, looking like they're going to try and do as close to a 50-50 split of strategy as they can. He can't do 50-50 in a 9-lap race, but you get the point, as he's trying to potentially probably going to navigate around this and end on this one here. As now we've got Fanna Spinoda just managing to get the jump on the ET8 guys. The ET8 guys are going side by side here, are the two boys here. They're going to try and play it gingerly if they can. Now Matteo has of course got the colder tyres here, so I would suspect ET8 are going to be told, come on, work with each other on this one, and they certainly have done so. Leon is just tucked in behind. Remember, he's the pole sitter for this one, and completely boxed in they are, as it is an absolutely critical bit of racing for the ET8 boys, as Leon is trying to get in there, but they've squeezed him, boxed him in, and they will hold on to P7 and 8.
I mean, easily could have become a wheel to side pod collision there, sending Leon round potentially, but got away with it. But that was exactly what ETA needed. They've got ahead of what was the lead runner, and potentially now running a net 1-2 as it currently stands. Still got obviously half race distance to go. David will be the one to find out, see when he pits, which is now, as to where he's going to come out. To be interesting to see. He's going to have the fresher tyres, but is that going to pay dividends towards the latter stages of this? Probably not. I've actually just realised, sorry, Fanna Spinoda is going to be the net leader. He's got 1.3 seconds over Matteo there as it currently stands. Steve and Ivan Eskrik decide to stay out for yet another lap. Interesting call there. Maybe they're just going to perhaps pray and hope for a safety car or a VSC of some form to try and help there. But where does David come out in all this? And the answer is he's dropping down the field like a stone.
Yes, absolutely. Here's your own as well, leaving the pit lane now. Remember, has he needed to change his front wing? Has he decided to keep up with the damage? He's kept the damage on the front wing of that car. He now falls down to P16, which is going to be extremely difficult to race with, as we've got a very strong battle happening between FRT and AMR here. This is between Otsasito and Samuel Barker. Now, Samuel Barker, not the best qualifying at all. One-shot qualifying was pretty atrocious from FRT standards. From Samuel Barker. He's down in P14 and trying to navigate his way around the circuit, and with only 4 laps to go, he hasn't got a lot of time to potentially damage limitate what is turning out to be potentially a very good race for their rivals in the championship for P3 Ventauri, 3rd and 6th respectively. Split by the two Alpines though, that's ET8, 4th and 5th. This is a good sprint race, and to be fair, it's been consistent all the way through this particular championship that the sprint races seem to be just where ETA are absolutely at their best. It's just a shame we can't translate that into the big races.
Indeed, and yeah, the sprint race obviously, points they're still on the cards obviously, and every single point does matter, but obviously there's a lot more points to dish out in the main race than it is in the sprint race. So it's all good, fine and well being towards the front of the knee, but you've got to translate that into the main race itself, and they've just consistently this season have not been able to do that, and more often than not obviously been outscored by SCI, and that is why they are not languishing down in P2. Obviously they are the closest rivals, but they're not as close as perhaps as to what they would like to be, as I thought David there was trying to have a cheeky look down the inside of Misha there, who just blocked the middle of the track there to prevent any form of late dive bomb Daniel Ricciardo-esque attempt, and it stays as Misha P5 and David in P6. This is the lead 6 cars, with Tony Reich in P7 now, but he's got Kevin Zumberg on those hard tyres sticking with him, so maybe it wasn't such a bad call after all.
Yeah, are the hard tyres are potentially a tyre that needs to be considered for the race? Absolutely. Is it going to be the tyre considered for the sprint? Nobody said so. But Kevin Zumberg decided to obey the laws of these tyres and just said, you know what, actually, it might be suitable for a sprint race, and so far, looking relatively decent. In fact, it's a relatively decent performance for EVR generally, 5th and 8th respectively, for the Kick Sauber outfit as well. Not be long before we see that car make a disappearing act, as we've got potentially side-by-side action between Matteo and Fanna Spinoda going through into Variante Ascari. That is absolutely ear-to-ear stuff there between the pair of them. I've never seen anything like that before going through there, but in the end electing not to go side by side. Let's see what Parabolica is like between the pair of them, then chucking the car through the right-hander. Matteo is all over the back of Fanna Spinoda. Maybe he wasn't looking for the overtake here. Maybe he was looking for it going through into turn 1. Fanna Spinoda has actually been shook up a little bit. Now he's used all of his ERS. He's gone into none. Will Matteo look for the move here? He's got the DRS, he's got the ERS, but then look at that, electing just to hold off and not put any pressure on an overtake against Fanna Spinoda. He is considering that last lap overtake on lap 9, isn't he?
quite possibly, but in fact, I might actually argue the fact that they might even do it on lap 8, just so then it gives Sergio a chance as well to, if he gets close enough, to go for a double overtake here. So yeah, we'll see if the fireworks start to light up on lap 8 for them. Kevin Zumberg, in the meantime, has actually managed to get ahead of Tony Reich now. So the Kick Sauber's there now in 5th and 7th, respectively, having a good sprint race here as the pair of them, as we've got side by side between Callum and Steve there. Callum taking or holding on to what is P12 at the moment. Steve on much fresher medium tyres, but obviously with 2.5 laps to go here, fresher tyres aren't really going to mean anything, especially when you're in this long DRS train, which starts from Boom High in P9.
Yeah, and looking like he was just trying to go down the inside again. Matteo is thinking of the long-term game here. He's not thinking of an overtake. He's more so thinking about, trying to get him off his line, trying to make him slow out of corners so then he can get the better exit and consider an overtake. Now, you're right here. He has got Sergio just tucked in behind by around about 3.5 tenths. If Fanna Spinoda gets overtaken by Matteo, he will get DRS, of course, throughout the 8th and the 9th lap. But if Sergio can get close enough, he will look for it. We'll see if he goes for it then, Matteo. And he is diving to the inside line, and he is going to commit to the overtake, and that one is done and dusted. Down the outside then, Sergio will go. Is this going to be a double switch? Oh, this is absolutely fabulous from ET8. They have absolutely boxed in everyone perfectly going through to turn 1. And Fanna Spinoda has not just been relegated to 2nd, he's been relegated to 3rd.
That was textbook.
Oh, he's looking for it! That's bold call! Bold call, looking for it down the inside onto the grass. And in the end, the move is not there, and actually very well held from all of the drivers. But Fanna Spinoda, very risky, that to say the least.
There's risk sometimes pays off with rewards, but that almost ended in disaster. Either way, they got away with it, but I think he's obviously going to be very annoyed the fact that he's just lost 2 places there to both drivers, obviously, and thankfully his teammate wasn't close enough to him to potentially, collide with his own teammates. But what this has done is it's brought Kevin and Tony into this matter now. We've got an 8-car train here for the top 8 as C picks up a time penalty, unfortunately, for multiple warnings. But here we go, final lap, and look at Fanna Spinoda now, a 10th of a second behind Sergio. It is still game on here. There's still potential P2 on the cards here. He's got a decent run out of Parabolica, but is he close enough?
Yeah, is he close enough indeed? Now, Ventari will be telling him, no risk whatsoever. We are massively outscoring FRT as it stands, but he's looking for P2 anyway, and he'll get this one done. Sergio's going to try and cut it. I must admit, Fanna Spinoda definitely cut in a little bit earlier. Very processed from Fanna Spinoda, but he decides to get that one done, and Sergio's been relegated to P3. Could that be critical for the championship, especially for ET8 at the moment? Leon is also looking for it side by side. Ventauri don't want to take any gambles because they're outscoring FRT big time here, but they're still going to gamble it anyway as they go side by side, and Sergio relegated to P4 as it stands. They'll go side by side through the first Lesmo. Are they going to continue through here side by side? No, in the end, Sergio has relegated himself down to P4 in this one. Ventari welcome themselves back onto the podium, not once but now twice. Sergio will continue to look for it. They'll go side by side through here, and Sergio will retake P3 out of the hands of Leon. But of course, that will be surely all done and dusted. While this is happening, Misha is breathing down the necks of the Red Bull man himself. The Red Bull man is currently struggling with all of his electrical energy, but in the end, Matteo is looking smiley. He's smiling from ear to ear, and what has been a valiant performance. Ventari's Leon has been relegated to 5th now as a result of the lack of ERS. Misha's now to P4. Matteo will finish as the race victor here tonight. The sprint race winner from Fanna Spinoda. Sergio, it's a double podium in the end from ET8. Misha P4, great result from them. And Kevin Zumberg on the hard, 7th place, great result. David finishing in P6. Samuel Barkle finishing P13. That could be a big points deficit now for FRT in their battle with Ventari for P3 in the championship. And SCI have been absolutely nowhere in this one. It's only a singular points haul from them in the sprint.
Indeed, and I don't know if she caught it there, Jota, but there was more end plate damage that came off the cars at the front, and it was Leon. He lost an end plate on that last lap at some point, so that certainly would have helped. But I mean, I thought that he had more battery compared to Sergio, but obviously Sergio playing it wise, deciding to stay behind him for the DRS straight, obviously down in towards Ascari, and in the end it paid off, and he got that podium finish. Leon will be gutted, I think, to say the least, considering he qualified on pole position to finish in 5th is not what he would have wanted. But yeah, good result there for Matteo and Sergio. Good result for Misha and obviously Kevin as well on those hard tyres as well, bear in mind, and they certainly were very, very good.
Well, that's the end of this particular race weekend session. We now move over to the main event. Now, of course, we are just going to have to change up the lobby and get everything reset up now for the main race ahead of us. But one thing is for certain is SEI's job to take the title here tonight is actually just made a little bit harder by the fact that ETA, again, Sprint Merchants, double podium, first and third from them. It's a 7th place finish, I believe. I thought it was a bit less than that. I thought it was 6th, actually, but we'll double check that. For Tony Reish, I think it was, for SCI. Your team didn't do look particularly well in the sprint there. It was a bit of an unusual one. Obviously, your own ended up losing a bucket of time with the wing damage, but Tony Reish didn't look particularly comfortable out there.
No, it certainly didn't. I mean, obviously, he managed to, both he and Kevin managed to close in, obviously, with the shenanigans and battling that was going on up in front. But yeah, just the pace just maybe wasn't quite there. I mean, when they were slightly calmer, he was sort of matching them. But that was only at best. He certainly wasn't really gaining. So hopefully that can change, obviously, for the obviously for main qualifying and for the main feature race itself. Thankfully, that was only the sprint race, but obviously, certainly not what SCI would have wanted. But at least now that's done with, it's out of the way, it's a reset, you go again, and hopefully, fingers crossed for their sake, obviously for Tony and for Haron, who would like to not have any damage next time around, is to recover what was lost.
And you know what? It was an absolutely fabulous sprint as well from those in our midfielders as well. One of those being EVR. It was a cracking performance from EVR to actually finish 4th and 7th. And they need every point they can because here for tonight, Kevin Zunberg has now got to serve a qualifying ban for this event, so he won't be taking part in qualifying. And on top of that, Misha's got to serve a 10-place grid penalty. So EVR are just having an absolute stinker when it turns out to this particular event. But everyone else is on as even. Wherever they qualify is where they will go. So Samuel Barker, as I said, and David here for FRT tonight in the McLarens. RSC and the Ferrari have got Luke and Wards. Fana Spinoda and Leon, as we saw at Ventauri. Tony Reish and Yerone at SCI looking a little bit uncomfortable here at the Temple of Speed. Callum and Tiago over at TF10 in the Aston Martin outfit from Matteo and Sergio at ET8. Boompai and Sieb here tonight for IRT. A bit of a mixed bag for them, actually. Should be in for a bit of a cracking race, actually, for IRT, so keep an eye out on them. Otso Zito and Ivan Eskrig, of course, the usual pairing you'd expect at AMR alongside Gergo and Siberox, one at QRT. And as said, the aforementioned Misha and Kevin serving their relative qualifying bans, respectively, as you see on screen. Misha with 10 and qualifying ban for Kevin. When it comes to the last week's results, I don't know, obviously, you weren't commentating with us on this one, Bobbers, but TF10 Snack getting the fastest, getting the best result of the Japanese Grand Prix, of course, taking the race victory. Silo, alongside SCI, Oscar himself, 2nd and 4th place, respectively, for them, split by Rayan RSC, who actually announced his departure from RSC this week as well. So, what a performance that was from SCI to put themselves in this position. What do they need to do if they want to try and take the title here tonight? And critically, what a result from TF10 as well. Of course, not just managing to take P10, but also P9.
Indeed, yes. I mean, well, obviously, like you said, yeah, I did watch, a fair bit of it last week, and it was obviously was a good result in the end. I think Silo may actually have been a little disappointed because I know how good he is around Japan. So he would have wanted a name for that victory, as that is the biggest pile-up I think I've seen in quite some time.
Yeah, for those who don't know, we've actually got the live stream on in the background, of course, and at the moment it's an absolute, we'll say S show. Go ahead, sorry.
I'd like to say clean up in aisle 2, but I think it's more than just aisle 2. I think it's everywhere.
They clean up at the entrance, more like.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Either way, yeah. So I mean, yeah, SCI have just shown, obviously, like last week, and as they have done, for the majority of the season, they have shown the consistency that for what the top team should bring, to the table, on in the biggest, on the biggest platform and on the biggest leagues, as it were, and that is what they've done also. One hiccup at Silverstone, but that was not down to a driver issue, that was down to a technical aspect. But otherwise, besides that one hiccup, realistically, they've just shown that they can. Doesn't matter where they start in some respect, they manage to get the points where they need to and have, for the majority of the season, outscored all of their rivals, obviously, at least being ET8, being their main challengers. So, yeah. But they'll have to do that again, obviously, here for the main race. In fact, they have to outdo them even more now if they want to have any chance on securing the title here tonight with ET8 slowly, well, ever so slightly closing in the gap, but that's what ET8 need to do. They need to chip away, and even in the sprint format, that's what they need to do to have any chance on taking this into not just next week, but to a final round decider.
Yeah, of course, of course. Now, obviously, we're just getting all the lobbies set up here. So, again, just a quick reminder of the race results from the Japanese Grand Prix outside of the usual pairings that we'd expect. EVR Willow having a great result for EVR, managing to finish in P5. From ET8's Alex Marciano, ET8, the highest played driver in that race, was 6th place. Lifebout finishing in 8th, separated by Samuel at FRT, not as Ventauri is saying in the logo. I've noticed some of the logos going a little bit weird. It's a bit unusual, that. We've got Mattia Manga in P9 for RSC, and then Skyline rounding out the top 10. Scraps of points operated between Quantum Otsa, Zito, White Sheep, Nico, and Lucas down in P15. And once again, of course, a very quick reminder of the scenario here in the calendar. We, of course, are at Italy here tonight. We've had our sprint race. We're now on to the main race. We'll do a short qualifying before the main race. And then, of course, we take a trip over to Saudi Arabia and then Abu Dhabi. It could all be wrapped up tonight. We're just doing all the calculations to determine what we think the points total needs to be. And as soon as we know that one, we will let you know as well. One thing we do know, I think, is that the points deficit has actually been cut as a result of that, now down to 110. So I think it's 725 playing 615. So just that result alone, ETA managed to get now into the 600s. We'll take a very quick break before we get on with our next event. The short qualifying for the Italian Grand Prix here in Monza will be just a few short moments away. Don't go away. Welcome back then to WOR and the Legacy Division. As we have said, we have got that qualifying ban for Kevin Zunberg over at EVR, so he will not be taking part in this event, but all other 19 runners will be taking part in this qualifying session. Misha doing the best that he can to mitigate the 10-place grid penalty he has to serve tonight. It is myself, James Otto, alongside Roberts here for this particular event, your co-commentary pairing for what will be, no doubt, potentially an historic race at one of the most historic circuits at the calendar. The gap between ET8 and SCI going into this race now is 36 points is what is needed. 110 points is the gap, so 36 points is what SCI need to outscore ET8 by in order to be champions here tonight. That poor sprint has made their job to become champions here tonight that little bit more difficult, Roberts.
Indeed, yeah. It wasn't the it was. I was going to say it wasn't the best sprint race for them. In fact, it was a
dismal sprint race for SCI, but at least it was the sprint race, not the feature race. Like I said earlier, they can reset, they can go again, they can have 3 or 4 attempts here in qualifying to get further up the grid to where they would expect or would like to be starting. But obviously they've got 17 other drivers, none the least their title challenges, who will do their damnedest to stop them from from taking that. But obviously on board with Misha, who had a good sprint race. Like I said, does have that 10 place grid penalty, unfortunately, but he's shown good promise. He's going to kick us off here.
Yeah, he certainly will. And actually, I'm going to hand it straight back over to you because they don't want to hear the commentator's curse here. Doesn't want to hand it over to me. Let's hand it over to you. You know all of your expertise for this circuit as he goes through to turn 2.
Indeed, yeah. So coming through the Variante Alta there, so through the first chicanes here into the Curva Grande now, just simple little flat-out right-hander. Keep it to the right-hand side, and then straighten the car up on the exit as we finish the first sector here to 25.7 there for Misha. Early stages. Let's see what it goes into the second chicane now. Nicely taken there, avoids the gravel. On the outside now into the first of the 2 Lesmons. The car can easily run wide here at both corners. Doesn't take the whole track there on the exit, the first one. Into the second one, where even more likely to dip a wheel into the gravel, but no such problems there for Misha. DRS now activated. Use the battery to a certain extent down this DRS straight into the Ascari chicane. Fast section. Flick the car left, right, and then left again. It's a fantastic sequence of corners, and it's well taken and well done there by Misha. Bring the car slowly over to the left-hand side for what is turn 11, and then the final corner here around the temple of speed. It is the Parabolica. Turn the car in to the right there. Much as you dab, back on the power straight away. Keep the car to the right for the shortest run to the start-finish line. That is a lap here around Monza, and Misha kicks us off with a 1:17.6. Let's see what everyone else can bring to the table as Tony Misha immediately goes quicker by 4/100ths of a second.
Excellently crafted, my dear friend. I could not have done better myself. Sergio, 17.473 for that one as well. Nearly beaten by Otsazito at AMR with a 17.496. I'm keeping an eye out on Wards here tonight as well. Not TF10 as his namesake would suggest. He's actually the RSC man, of course. That's the Red Scarlet Ferrari themselves here, of course, looking to try and get a good result where else. But here, David comes across the line to go fastest with a 17.472, 1,000th of a second faster than Sergio on this one as well. So pretty good laps here from Vanna Spinoda, slowest of those so far with a 1:18.237, actually beaten by Simba Ops 1 on this occasion. Here comes Tiago, he'll come across the line. He goes P11, 1:17.867. So everyone deep into the 17s except Vanna Spinoda so far. Where's Luke going to come in this one? Kicks in 7th gear, curiously, the RSC man, to go 6th fastest with a 1:17.608, 3,000ths behind Misha in P5. It's actually been a good lap from him on this one as well. I'm just following Leon. It's an invalid lap from him, so no lap to be made aware of. Gergo is just getting going here for QRT.
Indeed, Gergo actually invalidated his first attempt, as did Leon. Actually, Leon decided not to go again, where Gergo potentially might have enough fuel to go for a second attempt, or he might just try and get his head in the game, trying to get a lap and maybe just go straight into the pits. But we'll see how he does. 25.9 first set, so the best part nearly 2/10 off as to what we saw with Misha, what he did through the first split. As we come into the first Lesmo now, flicks the car into the right-hand side. He uses a bit more of the exit compared to what the Kick Sauber did. It's the second now, and again, much more aggressive there in comparison. We could see slightly different setups here. Some drivers may have slightly more downforce for this middle sector, and through Ascari in particular, some drivers will go for straight line speed. Well, what you want around here is straight line speed, as we saw in the sprint format through Ascari now. Gergo looking solid, but not really spectacular, I think it's fair to say. Ferrari there keeping well out of the way. That is Luke, who's currently in P6 at the moment. Gergo now into the Parabolica. Does he pit, or does he complete the lap to get a delta? The answer is he goes through because he would like a delta for his next attempt. And it's a 17.9, only P13. And I think that first sector in particular is where he lost the majority of his time.
Out of sequence is Mateo himself. Now, this is very characteristic of this driver. He's always done this, been a bit out of sequence with everyone else, especially in the first qualifying session. He'd rather have the clean run and not have anyone interrupting him. He is going to encounter some people who have just started their out laps. But Mateo is just about to get going here. What is now going to be a fairly critical lap here, because of course the fastest driver being David, the next one is his teammate Sergio. Then the nearest rival in the championship, of course, is SCI, and Tony Risch is currently 4th fastest and around about a 10th of a second slower. So if Matteo can put himself into the 117.4s, that may offer some very early confidence for ET8 that they might just have a little bit of an upper hand at the moment on SCI and try to stop SCI from taking the title here tonight.
Indeed, and obviously they took one small step closer out of the sprint format. Hopefully they can try for something they've not done an awful lot this season, is now rectify that into the main race. But let's, that's what they'll hope. Then they'll hope to hopefully try to gain a big haul or as much as they can. But obviously, as we've seen on a number of occasions this season, Jota, ET8 have floundered a little bit in qualifying. I remember on a few occasions that has happened. Let's hope for their sake it doesn't happen here tonight. 51.6 the end of the second split there for Matteo, looking very good there through the middle sector. Supposedly purple, take that with a pinch of salt, whether that is true or not. Into parabolic now, goes a bit wider compared to what some other drivers have done to get that slingshot, I guess you could say, to bring it to the right hand side. It's been a decent lap here for Matteo. It's more than decent, it's pole position.
Yeah, 117.3. Remember, this is not just the one qualifying session and then we went into Q2 and Q3. This is a short qualifying, so this is the battle for pole. And as it stands so far, ETA are looking very strong here tonight at the moment. Sergio's only 1,000th away for being on the front row alongside Matteo himself. And actually, Sergio is on a lap right now, so he was on an outlap. We saw him actually just overtaken just before going through into Parabolica. Now, answers on the postcard here, folks. Have ETA got the early upper hand? Well, he's found 37 thousandths in the first sector here, has Sergio. That puts him actually within the ballpark of Matteo's first sector here. So ETA could be having a little bit of a scrap on between who is going to get pole position between the pair of them here.
Indeed, they could as well. Just quickly on board with Tony there, just how he was getting on. He's 600ths up in his own first sector. Was very wide through the first Lesbo. Kicked up a little bit of grass, actually. So a little bit scruffy there from Tony. But yeah, I've just seen Sergio now 2/10 up through that middle split and on course for a 0.2 to currently make a provisional 1-2. David did actually not improve on his lap time, actually, I believe. But what can Sergio do now? Through Parabolica, flicks the car and keeps... I think I'm going to go with the 17.2. Could it be nah, probably not quick enough for 0.1. Probably going to be a 0.2. I'll take that back. It is a 0.1. Just ignore what I said.
Oh, wow.
I'm always wrong.
No, you're not. It's wrong in a decent way for Sergio, though. 17.187 is a blisteringly quick lap time at this part in qualifying. Tony Reich has gone to P3 overall. He's managed to damage Limitate on the situation, but it is down 6 thousandths on Matteo after all of those laps here. Leon is also breathing down the necks as well, as Ventari usually do, but David is definitely keeping on as even at the moment with Leon. While this is happening, Fana Spinoda is in 8th, but where is Samuel Barker? FRT are struggling at the moment with him at the moment. He's down in P17 in that very strong critical battle here as Ventari's Fana Spinoda has just cut the white line there. So if FRT have got anything to go by, they could penalise him for that, or at least send him to the stewards. Sieber's just gone 8th fastest for IRT. That is critical here for Samuel Barker, who's gone to 6th fastest, and he's applying the pressure on Ventari in that strong battle for P3. Great stuff.
Indeed, now his teammate David's just gone ahead of him into third place now, and just ahead of Matteo by 3,000. The reason why I made a noise here is because Otsazito's got into P2, less than half a 10, 43,000 off Sergio. So perhaps AMR here could spring up a surprise once again here in World Legacy online here. And Otsazito, could he actually do it? I mean, his teammate's down in P14, the best part of really 6/10 off him, but he's certainly flying the flag at the moment. Hirone's still in P10 at the moment, not where he wants to be, but he is he on a lap? No, he's not on a lap. He was on overtake there. I was thinking that he was for a second, but he's not. He's coming into the box because he's well down on his lap time. Not too sure there's anywhere else, but Luke is actually on a lap. Was P6 earlier on, now goes back into P10, a half a 10th improvement. Was certainly wanted to have found a bit more, but he does have time to get back in and go for one more attempt as it currently stands. But Sergio's still on provisional pole, but he's got Otsazito breathing down his neck, and I bet he wouldn't have thought that would be his nearest challenger at this point. Yeah,
but we've seen this actually throughout this part of this part of the championship. I'd say at least the latter third of this championship, where ET8 and SCI, especially when it comes to the qualifying, they're not really taking away front row lockouts at the moment because the midfielders are just breathing down their necks consistently, and that is just a testament to this particular championship, because it's always hundredths of a second, if not thousandths of a second, separating yourself from potentially P1 and maybe as lowly down as P5 at the moment. And that's exactly what we're seeing with Tony Riesch. And any other championship, 17.338, and put you potentially on the front row. Not this one, though. Here comes Matteo as he gets on with his lap then. He's out of sync with everyone else, as to be expected. He'll have a couple of people on outlaps to get around. Shouldn't be a massive issue as he heads through then into turn number 1, Rettifilio.
Indeed, I'm actually just, sorry, I was just busy watching Gergo to see how he was going to do. He's lost a lot of time there in that final sector. He was actually on course for 17.4, but lost a lot of time through the final sector. So now we'll go back on board with Matteo. Like I said, is off sequence compared to everybody else, but 44 thousandths up through that first sector, doing exactly what he needs to do. Well, he's kicked up the grass there, a bit of a clobbered the sausage curb there through the second part there of the chicane. Might have lost a little bit of time there, and certainly picked up some grass and gravel on his tyres for good measure. Chucks it in through the second, Lesmo. Very nicely done there. The amount of speed he took through there was phenomenal as we come down the straight now into Ascari. Let's see that middle sector split, and he's found 5 1,000s, but yeah, certainly lost a bit of time, I'd have thought, through that first Lesmo, chucking it in and just been a bit too wide on exit.
Yeah, he's been so aggressive out there, and I'm wondering if Matteo, and this is something we've seen throughout this season from Matteo, a little bit of overdriving perhaps on the car at the moment. The Alpine Renault really having the car thrown around the circuit. He's managed to find around about a tenth of a second overall, so this could be into the 17.2s, but has he beaten Otsazito? He hasn't. He's missed out by just 58 thousandths of a second from the front row lockout, and this is what I mean. This latter third of this championship, the midfielders have been breathing down the necks of ET8 and SCI when it comes to qualifying. Where have they been throughout the rest of this season is what I'm going to be screaming out, but nonetheless, really fascinating to watch as we start to see the first set of outlaps now coming in, or now coming to a conclusion. The first person we're going to be keeping an eye on, if you don't mind, is Tony Riesch, because of course he is the lead SCI driver at the moment. Jeroen is still down in P13 at the moment, really making it difficult for themselves at the Suzuki Igniters to take this championship tonight.
Indeed, yeah, I think Tony has been the one who's showed a little bit more pace as we've seen through both sprint and this current qualifying format. But Jeroen's still got a bit of time to try and relinquish that and try and make up for it. But Tony, 8,000s down through the first set. It's not the end of the world there through the first set. It is, it is literally just a chicane and make sure you get on the power and don't overdrive the car. It is down to this middle and final sector where you could gain all the time potentially. Chucks in through the second Lesmo. A bit of a slide there on the exit. Whether that cost him or not, we'll wait and see. DRS activated under the bridge. Rises back up the hill towards Ascari. He's found half a tenth at least, so he's going in the right direction. But that half a tenth is only potentially going to get around where Matteo is. He's gone too wide there on the exit of Ascari, just overdriving it potentially just a little bit too much. And that is his lap over and done with. How's Jeroen getting on in the meantime? He's only half a tenth up himself, so he's only going to potentially, well, not even make the top 10. He's actually just cut the second part of Ascari. So SCI and their latest attempts have both bottled it. Both drivers will at least get back into the pits and will be able to go again, but pressure is mounted on them, and it's not often we've said that this season.
Yeah, it's not been particularly good from SCI here. Now I'm wondering if they've decided just to relax a little bit and consider their strategy perhaps for Saudi Arabia. It's a more difficult circuit, let's be honest, than the Monza, so perhaps they've just decided not going to be the race where they're going to try and win the championship, but it could be the penultimate race here as it stands when it comes to their race, their driver selection. We do have a couple of people still on outlaps, well out of sync. 3 minutes to go in this session. Misha has just got going with his outlap, but Ivan Eskrig will be the lead driver of every single person that is going to be finishing their outlaps on this particular occasion. While this is happening, as it stands so far, everyone, Callum, Ivan, Eskrig, Gergo, Tiago and Simbarox 1 will all gain a position at the end of this qualifying session, because Misha has to serve his 10th place grid penalty, so he will fall to P19. So as it stands, it will be EVR at the foot of the table, unless Misha can at least score a P8 in this qualifying session. As it stands so far, well off the pace by around about, if my math works out right, about a tenth and a half.
Yeah, roughly so. Yeah, about a tenth and a half. Yeah, near enough bang on with that as it is. But yeah, what was a good sprint format for them. But yeah, obviously Kevin with that qualifying ban, Misha with a 10th place grid penalty. It's not what they would have wanted. Could be starting P19 and P20 at the back of the grid. It's not what they would want. But let's see what he can do as Ivan Eskrig comes to start potentially his final lap. He has enough time to go again if he makes a mistake. But he won't want to do that, obviously. But obviously, look at the
Lot of
amount of traffic he's going to have in front of him. Not so much the first 6 cars, but the latter cars that are definitely there. The Red Bull there keeping well to the left-hand side is the first driver to negotiate to get around. No problems there as he locked up into the first chicane. Coming through the curb at Grande now. Let's see how Ivan's first sector has been. It's been a little bit scruffy, in my opinion, but it did find 800ths of a second. It's actually on par with what some of the front runners have done.
Oh, I was going to say, it's a bit gone into the next set of corners there at De La Rogier a little bit aggressively, but he seems to have found just enough pace to not get on the gravel. We'll see what his Lesmos are like, and then of course you don't want to get the Lesmos wrong because then you lose time all the way down this DRS straight, of course, heading towards Ascari. We'll see where this car comes then. He's up 0.3 of a second, so actually that's putting him in the ballpark. I'm surprised he's kept his lap there actually because he's a bit wide going through the first part of Ascari. He's looking to be in the ballpark of around about seed pace here as it stands here, so I think there could be a P10 on the card here for Ivan Eskrig as he's getting out of the way of all the other drivers. He's not been impeded at all. Well crafted lap this from the AMR man, who's looking at least to try and get somewhere near Alsazito, but I think it's going to be seed level, and it's just behind seed for that matter. P11 as he dives to the right hand side and tries to avoid all the others. Other people that are on laps as well. We know Misha is on a lap, but he's invalidated his lap. He would have been about a 10th up as a result of that one. Callum's gone for a little bit of a spin at turn 1 for TF10. He's now just found himself for some reason parked at the chicane, so he's going to be breaking all of those polystyrene boards. We'll keep an eye out though on the people that are on laps that are going to be ones we need to keep a very firm eye on at the moment. Sergio is now just heading through. He's found 43 thousandths of a second in the first sector. A little bit wide though going through De La Rogier.
Indeed, he is. I'm actually on board with his teammate Matteo, who's a 10th up, and then he caught Ascari, and that is Matteo's qualifying done with. It's going to be P3 at best. Luke goes into P4 with a fantastic effort there at the end. But yeah, Matteo's going to be absolutely livid with himself. He had the pace. He could have potentially got himself onto the front row, if not provisional pole, but he's bottled it. Unfortunately, he's now going to have to hope and pray that none of the other drivers behind him can certainly improve. How's David getting on though? He's obviously in P5 at the moment. He's only 200s up though after the first 2 sectors. How's Tony getting on? Tony is invalidated, or Tony's done actually himself as well. But let's keep an eye on David then, currently P5. Can he get himself onto the front row? Yeah,
Alsazito is also down 78 thousandths of a second in the second sector, so I don't think Sergio's lap time is going to be impeded at the moment. That 17.187 is looking pretty crystal clear. David might be beating Luke. He's beaten Matteo for that matter as well, as the FRT man goes up to P3, and that could be critical in that little bit of a battle against Ventauri at the moment, who are currently P7. Leon is not improving. He's invalidated. Samuel Barker is down 12 thousandths of a second in the second sector, but will he find it in the third? When he comes across the line, he did not find time in the end. 5 thousandths of a second. He couldn't beat Leon, but he's in very close proximity with him. Fana Spinoda, P15 overall, and that's where he will start because Misha is currently down in 16th on an invalid lap, so he'll start down at the back. No improvements there from TF10 either. TF10 Callum obviously went for a spin. That's the end of that one. I think this qualifying is all done and dusted, and it looks to me as if Sergio has got himself on pole position for ETA. His teammate Matteo is in P4. Their nearest rival is in P6. ETA looking very good to try and take this championship battle to the next race in Saudi Arabia.
Good qualifying for them, but I think Matteo is going to be a little bit angry with himself. He actually could have taken pole position away from his teammate and made it a 1-2, which is the perfect scenario with what they would have wanted. But in the end, yeah, cutting to Ascari too much there, and in the end, it's cost him at least 1 or 2 positions in P4. It's still not terrible. You know, he is there towards the front, and obviously Tony being the nearest SCI driver in P6, Heron in P9 in the end with his final attempt there is where he starts. But it's, yeah, it's the upper hand here for ETA. It's what they would have wanted, but now they need to convert that. But I tell you what, the standout for me there in qualified is Luke in P5. Great effort.
Yeah, really, really good effort from Luke as well, from the RSC man, to get himself up in that position. So there will be an hour lobby restart because, of course, we've got to apply Misha's penalty. So he'll start in P19 overall in this one. So EVR will be at the foot. What a disappointing one from Fana Spinoda that is, though. Only P15 overall for the man in Ventauri. That could pose a bit of a threat in their little championship battle, of course, with FRT. Themselves, FRT didn't have a very good sprint race, and Ventauri had points in sprint race, managed to extend the gap from 1 to 2. So now a good points hold about 13, but they have a bad right out of the hands of Ventauri, which could pose as a bit of a threat for Saudi Arabia. Of course, we take part in Saudi Arabia next week, December 3, before we then take a trip to Abu Dhabi on December 10th for our finale of this race, where we do expect at least a bit of a championship hope here for our SCI, maybe in Saudi Arabia. It's looking more and more likely this is not going to be the race that crowns them a treble world champion. We'll see for the rest of this particular battle to take place in just a few short moments. Don't go away. Continued coverage of this Italian Grand Prix. We'll be back in just a few short moments. See you later. Sorry about the delay on that one. I've just had some lovely cheesecake. It is myself, James Otter, none other Jotter than, of course, alongside Boberts himself, because it is now we're going to be in for what will be no doubt a very intense race ahead of us here at the Temple of Speed. Thank you very much for being alongside us for this one here. Quick reminder of our drivers here tonight: Samuel, David, Luke, Wards, Fanas Benoda, Leon, Tony, Yaron, Callum, Tiago, Mateo, Sergio, Boompai, Seeb, Otsazito, Ivan Eskrig, Gergo, Simbarox 1, Misha, 10 place grid penalty starts P19, and Kevin qualifying ban starts P20. Boberts, we're in now. It is time for the Italian Grand Prix finally. Apologies, that cheesecake was just too good to wait for.
I mean, as I've just said to you, I do love a good cheesecake myself. It's, yeah, if it's there, if it's on a menu, I don't care what else there is. You could throw it all at me, but yeah, if there's a cheesecake on hand, it's got to be eaten. And yeah, so at this very moment in time, I am very, very jealous. Either way, enough about cheesecake. Back to the action, and obviously what has been a pretty hectic sprint and qualifying for us here for this 13th round of the season. But yeah, we've got 27 laps here ahead of us for this Italian Grand Prix around the Temple of Speed. Great circuit, legendary circuit, one the drivers will all appreciate and love themselves. But yeah, what has been so far a good session for ET8. They are doing what they need to do to keep this championship alive going into Jeddah next week. But we've still got 27 laps here, and anything can still happen. But yeah, SCI need to do a lot if they're to, well, I would say try and wrap it up here tonight, but I don't think that's going to happen. Let's be brutally candid.
Yeah, what was actually a delicious cheesecake for me was a delicious sweet treat for the ET8 team as well, with a great performance themselves in qualifying. It's actually meant that we've ended up with, you know, a decent position hold here for ET8. SCI and Yaron really struggling out in qualifying here, offering an opportunity again for a door is opening for the likes of ET8 here tonight to potentially snag up a decent, good points haul to close down the gap on SCI. Gap is currently 110. If the gap increases to 146 in this race, I'll get the maths right eventually. 146 points in the end. That means SCI will become champions here tonight, and it's still all in fair one. But what could be a little bit of a record breaker for SCI could actually be a record setter as well, because if they don't get on the podium here tonight, which is entirely plausible considering the pace of both of their drivers here tonight, this will be the first time this season that both of their drivers, or at least one of their drivers, hasn't actually got on the podium this season, which I think is just a testament to SCI's performance this season.
I mean, yeah, you don't want to be the one of the two drivers, or both drivers in this perspective, to, let that record slip that they've shown, for first 12 rounds of the season coming into round 13. So, but there's still a long race ahead of them, but what will be a very quick race. This it's a very, very short circuit, very quick circuit, as we all know here around Monza. So they haven't got a lot of time to do it, as we are already going 5 red lights coming on for the start of this Monza Grand Prix. Let's see what we're going to get here, Jota. I'm looking forward to this. It's lights out and away we go, as what is a good start there from Sergio. In fact, we've got a bit of ghosting there to begin with. That's not what you love to see, but we're 3 and nearly 4 wide there in the background. That is contact. That was Tony trying to go for a gap that was just closing ever so slightly. He's got round the outside though, and he's going to come alongside with David as well. We're 3 wide coming through the curve at Grande between Tony, David and Luke there. Tony might actually benefit out of all this. He's still got David there on his outside, which will be the inside into the second chicane. Luke trying to find a way to get ahead. That is Mateo making a mistake there, but Tony's got the move done. He's been aggressive and he's got what he needed done, and he's all over the back of the first of the ETA drivers now. That's Leon trying to get the move down the inside, and Luke is just going backwards, unfortunately, at the start of this race. He's now into P6. Look at the 2 out in front, are already over a second clear from Mateo in P3.
Yeah, absolutely critical stuff here now for ET8 to maintain their positions with Mateo up 1 position. He'll try to find another one to make it an ET8 1-2 and try and inflict the maximum damage they can. The problem is SCI have done a decent start themselves. Tony Reich is up 2, Yaron up 1, though Yaron down in P8. Great start from Misha as well, as managed to gain that 1 position, but still battling with Ivan Eskrig at the back. He's now down to P19. Battle still brewing at the moment here between Tony Reich and Mateo. Now, Tony Reich, point to prove for the SCI team here, because he'll want to try and get this one done as quickly as he possibly can, and he is looking for it. Overtake available. He dives to the inside, does Matteo, to try and defend from this one. Remember, hard tyre currently on the ET8 man as well, so ideally Matteo needs to hold Tony Reich as long as he can, but it looks like to me this position is going to be all done and dusted. Here is your tyre situation. Otsazito and Tony Reich both on a medium tyre. Both ET8 drivers are critically though on a hard tyre, and they have decided not to mix their strategies to make sure that they don't end up tripping over each other's shoelaces.
Indeed, yeah, but obviously the one thing that could just put an end to that immediately is the safety car, obviously, so they're going to hope that that does not come into play. But look at Tony go, and he's already gaining on the front too. Otsazito did not want to go for the move there at Sergio. He probably realises he's on the hard compounded tyre, so we might want to make a move on, get a shift on, especially with likes of Tony closing in, and Leon in P5 also on the medium compounded tyre. He's got himself ahead of David now, who's also on that hard compound tyre. It's near enough a 50-50 split, you know, here, Jota, between the medium and the hard tyre compound of choice here throughout the grid here. Some teams going for splits, some teams going for, you know, the same strategy call here, but especially the kick salves at the back, who are still maintaining P19 and P20, unfortunately for them, as Ward's now getting very close to the back of Heron. They're going through Parabolica, who in turn is closing in on his fellow compatriot Luke there in front of him, as Tony Reich sets the fastest lap of the race. No real surprise here with the amount of time he's gained. Here comes Otsazito now, though, with the end of DRS down to the inside line to the first chicane to turn 1, gets back up towards the middle of the circuit, and that's job done. AMR lead again.
Yeah, of course. Three podiums this season for the second Spanish outfit over in the Racing Bulls. AMR doing decent to get that race victory over in Austria. Of course, getting the second place, their last podium at Australia, which is a couple of rounds ago on round 11. Of course, replacing the Miami circuit on the calendar, did Australia at the very last second, of course, due to that glitch in the Ferrari paddock. But keeping an eye out on Tony Reich, who is now trying to close down on Sergio. And look, we're not saying that ET8's pace is falling off a cliff. Remember, the medium tyre is going to be significantly faster at this part of the race, so I don't think it's all in fair warn here. The problem for Matteo at the moment, though, is he's got a very quick Venturi Leon, who, of course, they've got their own point to prove. They ideally don't want to be stuck behind Matteo if they can help it, because, of course, right behind is David, also on the same hard tyre strategy. So if David just keeps to the back of Leon, those medium tyres, they've been on the medium tyre at the start of the race. When he switches over to the hards, David is going to be so much quicker in the second part of this race that Venturi are actually going to drop points, surely.
Indeed, yeah, it's quite likely actually. But I'll tell you what, Matteo's not, I mean, he's got the DRS, but he was specified nearly 8 tenths there at the end of Parabolica, off the back of Tony in front of him. He's managed to claw a little bit of that back, so Leon probably not close enough to go for a move on this occasion. Heron looks like he's trying to keep out the slipstream from Luke and try and defend from Ward at the same time. He's got obviously in a Ferrari sandwich at the moment is the in that Mercedes, but poor traction there from Ward to the exit of the first chicane, and he's not really going to be anywhere near close enough to go for a move. Fala Spinoda is obviously trying to get back some positions that obviously to get higher up to where he thinks he should be. He's going to go down the inside there of Moonpie into the second chicane sideways as he tries to avoid Steve at the same time. I know he said the same word twice there, but in the end, as a result, he's not got the move done because of that slide into the chicane. Moonpie goes back into P11. Fastfielder trying his damnedest to get ahead of the first of the two house drivers.
Yeah, and critically as well, obviously they've got their own little championship battle happening for the strong battle for P3 as it stands so far. The points haul for Venturi and FRT are going to be fairly similar, because whilst FRT, Leon and David are in their own battle, Samuel Barker and Fana Spinoda are also in their own little battle on a completely different part of the circuit. In fact, Samuel Barker is about to get the move done despite the fact he's on the harder compound of tyre. He's now up to P12 and actually in front of the man, Fana Spinoda, the team of Venturi. So that is giving FRT a little bit of hope here that David could potentially make a consideration of getting some kind of move done on Leon, who actually dives to the inside, does Leon, to effectively not give a toe to David, because he's not really making any massive inroads on Matteo either at the moment.
Indeed, I think Fala Spinoda's problem was he burnt all of his battery to try and get the move done on Boompai, and that Samuel just thought, well, thank you very much, I'll have some of that. With obviously the much considerable battery outage, and Callum actually got quite looked like a tasty chance to go into the first chicane. In the end, didn't make anything of it. His teammate Tiago gets a move done potentially on the inside of Gergo. They're all wheel to wheel banging between the pair of them, but in the end, Tiago does get the move done. So that's them up in position, each for the pair of them. back towards the front, and Otsazito has almost cleared the DRS from Sergio there, who just hangs on by the slenderest of margins there to close that gap up by 3/10 going into Ascari. But Otsazito, I know he's on the medium tyres, just showing though the pace that he has got here tonight.
VNT currently still a net gain at the moment in FLT in that battle for P3. The gap was 3, it's now 15. As it stands at the moment. ET8 are actually going to cut the deficit down to 93 as it stands so far, but of course still plenty of racing to go, and of course the first round of pit stops are going to be in the next, we would suspect, within the next sort of 10 or so laps. Probably a bit earlier than that actually, probably within the next 6 or 7, especially to get off those medium tyres, which if I'm perfectly honest with you at the moment, I hope we're not already at the crossover, because if we are, then this is going to be very much a hard tyre race here, and about how well you look after your hard tyres, because around the field at the moment, the hard tyres starting to come into fruition here, although Leon manages to pull a bit of a gap against David, gap around about 7.5 tenths. You know, the hard tyres will come into their own imminently, and when that happens, well, you've got to be perfectly honest with this, is when Sergio will close down the gap again on that Sosito. That's when Matteo will close down the gap on Tony Reich, and remember, they're going to be on the faster compounded tyre towards the end of this race when this track is less green.
Indeed, yeah. I don't know if you've actually noticed this, Jota. I've just seen it in the chat. There is rain due at the end of the race. That will certainly spice things up, depending on how late that comes into the race. But we'll keep an eye on that one as the laps unfold and we progress into the latter stages. But Ward has already lost the DRS off the back of her own there in front of him, just struggling on his medium compounded tyres. And we saw in the sprint race with Kevin going onto the hard tyres. I personally thought that was a weird strategy call there for him, but it actually worked, showing the hard tyres were just the better racer, even just for the best part of 5 or 6 laps. So yeah, definitely the hard tyres are the way to go. We're going to have to stretch these mediums as long as they can. They can't get them to go 20 laps here or 21 laps respectively and get these to the end. Out in front, nothing really happened apart from Harone going for the move down the inside of Luke there into the first corner. No such issues. Luke did not defend that at all, and that is now P7 Harone, who is on the hard compounded tyres. Simrock's one going for a very early stop actually. Guys said about going 20-21 laps on hard compounded tyres. That, it looks like, is what he's going to do to try and propel himself up the field if he can.
Yeah, trying to commit to the undercut there. Gap now 95, separating ET8 from the SCR. Still nowhere near enough to take the title here tonight, as I'm sure will be in the unfortunate years of Dirk and Roberts himself as well, of course, an SCI man himself. Alsozito still leading the way though, the MR driver looking to try and get the second win of the season, the first one coming actually from his teammate Ivan Eskrig over in Austria, looking to try and capitalise on what has actually been a very good qualifying from the AMR man, but of course remember he is on the better tyre on this part of the stint and he's not really shaking off Sergio. Gap's still around about 7/10 of a second, and the problem for him is that they are being all carried by a DRS train that falls all the way down to P19.
Indeed, yeah, Waters has actually managed to gain a little bit of time. I think that actually might be because of Sieb getting the move done on him. So yeah, this has now become a 19-car train once again, as Tony, yes, in very early, the end of lap 7, 21 laps on hard tyres. Can he get those to the end of the race depending on the rain situation? But he's going for that undercut and he's going to try and get that net race lead potentially away from Otsazito, who will surely respond at the end of this lap to making his own pit stop. Gergo also in off the medium compound tyres as like his teammate, and yeah, QRT going for a very early strategy call here. But yeah, Otsazito, even though he's on the mediums, which at this point are now probably, you know, second best, let's be candid here, compared to the hard tyres, he actually pulls away through that middle sector quite comfortably as well, compared to Sergio here. So even though, yeah, his tyres are now 7 laps old going into lap 8 now, he's actually holding his own pace on his own. But now the obviously Sergio and Matteo are together, they can work together by the time Otsazito does pit to go at their own pace and just, you know, propel each other along.
Tiago going wide at the De La Rogier chicane, loses a couple of positions to Ivan Eskrig and Kevin Zunberg. Van Spinoda finding himself in a strong battle again with Samuel Barker. This is a very strong battle again, remember, between FRT and Ventauri at the moment. Obviously still all of the pit stops to happen. I wonder if anyone's going to be caught out now by the Tony Reich, you know, committing to this early pit stop here. Alsozito actually has decided he doesn't want to get caught out by this one, so he will make it an ET8 1-2, both on the hard tyre, remember. Now, here's a question for you. Are they pitting a little bit earlier because they're anticipating the situation in terms of rain, and they're expecting that the hard tyre will go a distance and then they'll need to switch to an inter? Because if that is the situation, then the hard tyre runners are going to be smiling from ear to ear because they won't need to pit.
Yeah, that is certainly something that they'll be wanting to keep an eye out on for definite. I mean, if that rain kind of comes a little bit earlier towards, by the time that the, you can just switch to inters, then that is the strategy call here. Obviously, the likes of, obviously, all the medium tyre runners going onto the hards, they're going to be a lot quicker now. Obviously, Tony has actually managed to jump Otsazito there, so he actually gets ahead of the AMR driver by going on, obviously, that 1 lap shorter on the medium tyres. He's 11 seconds off the back of Misha, at the back of the second train, as we'll call it, but obviously the field has spread ever so slightly with a mixture of obviously the medium hard tyre runners, obviously with just Ivan Eskrig, Fanas Spiroda, and Ward's the last remaining medium tyre runners who will all pit at the end of this lap, I would have thought, to get rid of those mediums and go on to the hards. But yeah, it's a case of can Tony close in enough to, make sure that that 2-stop could potentially work for him if, intermediates are the call. We'll wait and see as the race develops and unfolds, but out in front, ETA are doing what they need to do. They lead the way, and obviously they've got Damien and Haron there in this 4-train car battle, as per se, but they'll just propel each other along. They probably won't battle until later on.
Yeah, Savannah Spinoda also in the pit lane trying to not be caught out here. While this is happening, Tony Reich, actually the overcut working an absolute treat for him and getting that jump on Atsozito. So, absolutely fine for him here, and rather Atsozito's overcut rather, not working a little bit and actually falling behind Tony Reich. Remember, Atsozito was leading this race at the beginning of this, at the end of the stint rather. So actually being caught behind the SCI Mercedes is not ideal, if we're perfectly honest, for the AMR man. Of course, remember looking to take AMR's 4th podium this season. So that is one we need to keep a very firm eye on. The gap is around 9 seconds, so it's clean air to Misha in P13. While this is happening, we'll go back towards the front. Sergio and Matteo in their own little scrap. Now, David is keeping honours even here. The FRT man looking to try and secure as many points as they can, and obviously try and damage limitate from what was a very poor sprint race from the Future Racing team. Of course, losing a lot of ground to Ventari, the gap actually extended by a considerable margin. I believe, if my math works it out right, to 13 points. If that is the situation, either way, it was 3, so they'll want to try and earn as many points as they can back. Critically, though, both of their drivers are on hard tyres, so if this rain stint does appear a little bit early here, then that is obviously going to fall well into favour of the McLaren Mercedes outfit.
Indeed, it will do. One thing I did just notice at a quick look as Tony Reich now just being by Otsazito, they both set fastest laps respectively. They have just caught 2.4. Oh,
sorry to make a bit of a move on that one. Otsazito has actually just committed to the overtake against Tony Reich, so now he's back in the net lead of this race. You were saying?
What I was just trying to say was they closed up 2.4 seconds on Sergio on that previous lap between the pair of them. At that rate, they will actually close in enough to overhaul that, that extra pit stop that they are doing. But they've got to get ahead of the traffic, which they're going to probably catch in the next sort of 3-4 laps, well, probably 3 laps, I would say. But it is breaking up, which is what they would want. Tiago's dropped off out of the DRS of Kevin Zumberg, so that's what they want to see, is these trains breaking up. Ward still out on his medium tyres is the interesting one for me. He is losing pace. Obviously, he's now dropped off 2 seconds off the back of Steve, so it's interesting to see what his strategy is, why he's not pitted, yet his teammate has.
Yeah, Sieb always in the mix, isn't he? The man who, of course, took a valiant effort, a valiant win, rather, IRT, of course, at the British Grand Prix reverse. Did Sieb, and he's welcomed himself into this battle, of course, if this is going to be a one-stop race for those on the hard tyres. Now, I'm keeping an eye out on the general track conditions, and yes, there is blue sky out there, but I will concede the overcast clouds are starting to creep in a little bit here, which is usually my telltale sign here that we've probably got rain within the next 10 or so laps, which would fall pretty handily to those that have elected to stay out on the hard tyre. So if the rain does end up falling within the next 10 laps, then we could switch over to an intermediate tyre at around about lap 24, depending if the tyres, A, will go the distance, and B, if that's when the rain has fallen down enough that actually the intermediate tyres are the better tyre to be on, because this circuit, it's a high humidity circuit, so it does get, when it rains, it does kind of, you know, the moisture is quite significant, but you know, how quickly we get over to an intermediate tyre is going to be the question. For all we know, rain could fall on lap 26, and we're on the dry tyres all the way to the end.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, it's you just summed it rather perfectly there, Jotty. I don't think you need to say any more on that fact. But the fact of the matter is that Zito and Tony Reich are closing in quickly, as we know, on the drivers in front of them. And Leon is actually, in turn, closing in ever so slightly on the pair of them. So yeah, keep an eye on Leon for Ventari here, see what he does in his hard compounded tyres. But Tony's probably going to go for a move here. Nothing happening in the top 11. They're all just kind of saying single file formation. But these two, Tony and Zito, will just help each other, not battle. And as we've just seen there, Zito just letting Tony go before turn one, get back onto the racing line to not hold each other up. And at this point now, Tony will use the battery. Zito will save his battery. They'll pull each other along and we'll go again as we reach the half race distance. It is still Sergio that leads from Matteo, from David and Heron, but Seaver's now joining on the action, showing his pace here tonight, and Seaver looking very good.
Yes, certainly looking very good. As I said, Steve, the race winner, of course, for IRT, the first race victory in WR Legacy Division over at Britain Reverse. It was a great race generally, but to see IRT take, you know, one of the OG teams of this of our little esports sphere take a race victory in Legacy Division is always an absolute treat, to say the least. I've just done some maths, would you believe, as boring as this may sound in this one. If the race was to end exactly as it is, while these overcast conditions are really starting to set in now, the blue sky is still there, but it's getting a little bit less abundant. If we just happen to say everyone now switches on to an intermediate and everyone is where they are and that's where they finish, as it stands, SCI and ET8 will close up the gap to 64 points. FRT will take P3 out of the hands of Ventauri at the moment because of a 3rd and 6th place finish and only a couple of points for Leon as it stands. So this rain falling is so critical for those on the hard tyres that they haven't pitted yet.
Indeed, they're going to hope, well, at least for ET8's sake and for FRT's, they will be starting the rain dance now if they haven't already. They want that to come as quickly as possible. But it's amazing how in these last couple of laps, how much, like you said, Josh, it has clouded over. That sunshine is now very hazy, if not gone altogether. So we might actually see the rain a little bit sooner than perhaps anticipated. But again, like you said, when it starts to rain, it's a case of how long does it take for the track to be wet enough before you then switch over to the intermediate tyres. So yeah, it's certainly going to be a close one, but as ETA have entered Ascari, Tony has exited the second Lesmos. That is the gap between them. It is basically that DRS straight, and the gap is 12 seconds from Sergio down to Tony, who is now 2.5 seconds off the back of Tiago. Like I said, the first driver to make an overtake.
That 15 of 27 when they come across the start-finishing line, as the track conditions are now really starting to deteriorate on circuit. I must admit the moisture is potentially starting to rise. You'll know when the rain starts to fall, or is potentially going to start falling, as the conditions become a little bit more hazy on the horizon. We're nowhere near that level just yet, but I suspect around about lap 19, lap 20 is perhaps when we may expect, you know, rain to be sufficient enough maybe for you know, maybe the intermediate time, or maybe just questioning that situation. This is assuming that it starts raining within the next couple of laps. We'll have to see anyway, because as the late Murray Walker would say, anything can happen, and it usually does. Lap 15 of 27 of this race. Answers on a postcard, folks. So who you think your favourite is for this race victory? Because now, in my opinion, it's blown completely wide open. One thing is for certain, Samuel Barker's under a little bit of pressure here from TF10's Callum. He's having a decent first stint here. Is the TF10 man up to P7 and actually putting the FRT man under a bit of pressure?
He is, yeah. Samuel actually got to 2.5 seconds off the back of Steve, so he was actually gaining on the lead 5 drivers, as it were, but made a mistake with the first chicane, I believe, and that's where he's just lost all the time, pretty much. He gained. Tony is now 1 second off the back of Tiago, so he'll have the DRS going down the pit straight this next time around. Obviously much better grip for Ascari here, now down to 9/10, and is now he's going to have to burn a bit of battery to make sure he does get there, but I'm sure he probably will do. So now this is the time to where, yeah, Tony, Zito and Leon probably in a few more laps time, where they're going to have to get these moves done, and as quickly as possible with their much fresher tyres, as actually Samuel Barker goes into the box and has sped into the pit lane. That is not what FRT would have wanted. He's decided that it's not going to rain at all or enough to warrant have to stay on the hard, He's going onto a set of mediums, but that's his race pretty much ruined by just a simple lack of concentration.
Oh, that is so critical for FRT. The last thing they need is to be having unnecessary 10-second penalties thrown at them, but that is it for Samuel Barker's race, as I would suspect, because that's the first person to actually receive a penalty throughout this race. Everyone's managed to stay within the track limits, no issue whatsoever. He's then sped in the pit lane, is the only one with a time penalty to his name as a result. Down in P18, fresh medium tyre will look very sharp indeed, but we are surely going to be expecting the hard tyre runners off of these tyres imminently to switch onto a medium. It doesn't look like this rain is going to be falling, but I will say, looking at the horizons now, it is starting to look just a little bit on the foggy side, and one has a sneaking suspicion the rain is imminent.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a few, shadows out on track, so it's, perhaps not fully clouded over, as Tony has managed to get ahead of both Tiago and Misha now. Obviously, Zito's just got the move done on Tiago as he tries to stick with the SCI man there in front of him. So Tony Reich has now got a 2-second gap then to Kevin Zumberg and Callum in front of them, and then you've got the lead 5 drivers. Do any of them pit? Yes, they do. David and C both go into the box. They're going for the undercut on the lead 3, and ET8, neither of their drivers pitting. Are they just kind of hoping this rain is going to come, or have they just kind of maybe potentially thrown it away here again with strategy?
It would unfortunately be very characteristic of ET8 this season, and to be honest with you, ET8 have found that this particular championship is certainly their Achilles heel. I keep saying it, they've won every single other championship, but this one keeps falling by the wayside, and it could be back-to-back runners-up spots here for the Spanish outfit. As it stands so far, P1 and P2 respectively in this race, Euron is breathing down their necks at the moment, and if he continues to put them under pressure, actually there could be a little bit of a weird situation occurring in the between all of these drivers, who have obviously got their own little scraps to try and potentially invite none other than Tony Reich into the mix, who is really making some serious inroads now. Otso Zito is just managing to get the move done on Misha, probably down the pit straight here. Tony Reich, on the other hand, around about a second behind Callum, and behind right in front of Callum is actually Kevin Zumberg. So actually, the SCI man could be straight up to P4, and the rain is not falling, and he's on a better tyre than everyone else, and he can go to the end of this race, no issue whatsoever. 10 laps to go in this race. If the rain isn't going to fall imminently, Tony Reich has actually got one hand on this winner's trophy here, surely, as we see Callum into the pits.
Indeed, yes, so that gets rid of one aspect to get in front, to drive to have to overtake. He's got a gap to Kevin, so you can just use that DRS to close in slowly, maybe go for a move down in towards Ascari, as finally Otz gets the move done on Misha, but he's now 1.4 seconds off the back of Tony, and he's going to have to try and gain that time as quickly as he can to try and get back within the DRS of the SEM man in front of him. These two looking in the strongest positions as it currently stands. If the rain does not fall, we have less than 10 laps to go now, Jota, and it's I'm still intrigued by the drivers. Obviously, those who have pitted have decided it's not going to rain, or not sufficiently enough to warrant to stay out, and you've still got those who are staying out and think that it will rain soon, and it will change to intermediate tyres. It's anyone's guess at the moment.
Yeah, critical situation for FRT at the moment is they've gone from 3 points deficit to VNT to what I now count as 25-point difference now. No, pardon me, 27-point difference between Ventara and FRT as it stands so far in this race. So, that battle for P3 now opening up as a result of what has been a bad sprint and now could be potentially a bad race for FRT. But this rain has got to fall at some point for the men in this other Spanish outfit at Mateo, Sergio, ET8. They're still staying out there at the moment are Mateo and Sergio, and now we're getting on to lap 19 of 27. They are putting all the eggs in the it's going to rain basket, and it's not just rain dancing, it's rain singing, it's rain walking, it's rain everything at the moment, as we've got a bit of scraps happening between Ventari and EVR. This is a very strong battle, of course. EVR need to make their pit stop still, and Leon made that one very easy pickings.
He did actually, yeah, and I was actually on board with Otsacito with a very Daniel Ricciardo-esque late move breaking down the inside of Kevin there into the first chicane. Had to get that move done, and he's now managed to get himself back within the DRS of Tony Reich. That was important, he got that move done, and he's now 9/10 off the back of the SCI man in front of him. And these two now only 3.6 and 4.5 seconds off the lead train in front of them. And like you said, I think these top 3 have put all their eggs in one basket, that this rain is going to come, so then they don't have to pit onto the mediums and hold out until the inters. But tyre wear is certainly going to be a factor here. The left-hand side especially are going to be taking a brunting, and what pain and tyre wear are they in at the moment? Only time will tell. Could we see a puncture? I hope not, because that was certainly raise alarm bells.
Yeah, people are asking the question now about whether this rain is actually going to fall so quick enough here. This rain needs to fall now. It needs to fall now. And I'm looking at it right now, and I'm not seeing anything at the moment on these cars. Now, as it stands here, Matteo and Sergio, let's be honest with you here now. Jeroen still needs to make his pit stop here, so it's not likely that Tony Reich is obviously going to be able to extend the gap on his own enough for SCI, but you know, the situation report is that they're still going to take a big chunk of points out of ET8 as it stands, and this, I think, is just a pure testament to the situation with ET8. Instead of splitting the strategy like SCI have done, they've decided to put all their eggs in one basket and take the gamble, but they've been doing these gambles all the way through the season, and it's never paid off. So why they continue to think it's going to work, I don't know.
Again, Yoga's as good as mine. I don't know why they do it, but it's obviously what they decided to do, and it's what they've done. And again, on numerous occasions this season, it has not paid off for them. Whether or not it'll pay off for them tonight, it's, you know, time will tell. But there's still, you know, there is still some shadows out on track, which tells me that the rain is just not even going to come. If at all, then they might have to just pit on the, you know, lap 25 to go onto the soft tyres, just to, you know, they could, you know, fall within the regulations here to complete a pit stop. So, and by that point, they're going to be well down the yard. Obviously, those who did start on the hards, a lot of, obviously, you know, what, 6 drivers have committed. Yeah, they're saying that again. They've committed, obviously, to go onto the mediums to get that pit stop done. And then, obviously, those who started on the mediums are already on the hards now. But yeah, you've got, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drivers who have stayed out, who think that it is going to rain. And yeah, ETA are 2 of those 5 drivers, and I just don't see it working out for them.
I'm absolutely gobsmacked. I'm absolutely gobsmacked that they've decided not to just decide, you know, at least 5 or 6 laps ago, you know what, lads, we're just going to have to protect ourselves here. They've decided to take this gamble on a race where they could potentially lose it. Is he? Has we got someone with a puncture? No, Kevin Zuberg has got a puncture. He has lost the front rear left tyre, in this race. That's 20 lap hard tyres. That should be an indication of the detrimental effects we've currently got for the front 3. There is surely a puncture imminently for these drivers. Now, have we got any rain on the horizon? I think we do. Rain is now falling on circuit, but it's going to be nowhere near enough for an intermediate tyre, and punctures are now happening on the hard tyre. If either of the ET8 drivers get a puncture here, that could be all done and dusted when it comes to this championship. Now, what is Jeroen going to do in this one? Is he going to cover tracks? Is he going to switch over to a medium tyre knowing the rain may not be enough? Or is he going to stay out even further? Is SCI going to bail him in? Yes, he certainly is, but Sergio is also going to, Matteo is going to be joining him. Is it an intermediate tyre? It's very early in the day for that one.
It is very early. I mean, they have to go for it, though. If the rain is coming, they've got to do it. And obviously, with the risk of punctures, they can't afford to go into the soft. And indeed, there you go. There it is. There's the intermediate tyre going on those 2 cars. And the same as well, obviously, I'm going to presume for Misha as well, who's also in the box. But Tony Reich is in a prime position here. He's still got Otsuzito 6/10 off him, but they've still got to close down Sergio as they're going to have the very slow 3-wheeled car of Kevin to negotiate, probably going into Ascari. But Tony Reich surely is in a prime position. He could just stay out for an extra lap or so, knowing that the hard tyres are still going to be the better tyre, because I mean, to me, that rain is nowhere near hard enough, and it's not going to soak up on circuit. DRS going to be activated here for the Mercedes. He's going to close in very quickly here, but not close enough to get a move done at Ascari, but certainly out of Parabolica. Tony will get this move done if Sergio does indeed not pit.
Matteo is currently 24 seconds back from the race lead at the moment. Throughout every corner that he is doing, he is at the moment actually holding around station, around 24 seconds. So actually, we could be heading on to an intermediate tyre recommendation immediately. Oh, Sergio doing a double switch to try and defend here from Tony Reich. Remember, Sergio has got those 21 lap-old hard tyres, and they are in. And the reason why... Oh, Sergio's got a 10-second penalty. That could be critical for the championship. Matteo is gaining time, hand over fist at the moment here. Kevin Zuberg is still navigating around the circuit with that rear left puncture at the moment. It's been an absolutely awful scenario for him. We are now expecting the intermediate tyre to be the better tyre to be on. Sergio will be leaving the pit lane, but where is Matteo in all of this one? He's coming down the start-finishing line. Is he going to get the overtakes? Is he going to get anywhere near Tony Reich? As they come into the pit lane exit, he gets Tony Reich, and they have managed to get the jump, but they're going side by side going into turn 1. Are they going to look coming out of the corner? Tony Reich concedes it. As it stands, ETA have managed to just hold on to their 1-2. Can you believe it? But we're talking only hundredths of a second in the end, would you believe? We've lost Kevin Thunberg. He's retired in the pits. Is Tony Reich going to go for it going into De La Rozier? No, he won't. He'll hold on to P3. Well done, ETA. It was hundredths of a second the difference, but they managed to do it.
Can I just point out, though, they're not closing in on Otsozito. In fact, Sergio is losing time to the race leader, who stays out. I actually think it's worth staying out at this present moment. The rain is nowhere near hard enough, and these intermediates could potentially just burn out. I wonder if SCI have decided just to cover ETA to negate any possible aspect if the rain was to get harder, let's say the last lap or two. But at the moment, Otsozito, surely he's got to stay out. Indeed, he does. He stays out. Faras Spinoda, interestingly, goes into the pits. We've got a difference of opinion here, and David now into P3 and his mediums. Maybe the medium tyre runners have a chance here. They're going to be the better tyre, obviously in these slightly greasy conditions. But Otsozito, what is that at 8.8 seconds his lead at the moment. Where does Faras Spinoda going to come from? Nowhere near, but here comes Tony Reich now, trying to get a move done, is he? No, it's not. It's Thiago actually on Matteo. Sorry, I do apologise.
No, absolutely critical this one here as well, because the gaps aren't actually shrinking that aggressively. Gap Sergio 22.5 when he came into turn 1. It was about 23 going through Parabolica, so he's only finding around about half a second on every sector rather. That is not enough time with the amount of time that we've got left in this race, as Tony Reich is trying to put Matteo under pressure. Otsozito is in a decent position, but if the medium tyres are the better tyre to be on at the moment with these conditions, the biggest winners in this one are FRT, and that is so critical in that battle for P3. IRT are also in a decent position as well if that's the situation, but while this is happening, you've got AMR in P5 in the standings, who are both on hard tyres. If this needs to go all the way to the end on the hards, and that tyre is the better tyre to be on, are we on for a double podium for AMR?
I mean, it's certainly not the question. Obviously, the one issue for FRT is, Simon Barker does have that 10-second time penalty, unfortunately, that he did for speeding into the pit lane. But obviously, he's just have to soak that up and just see where he ends up. Yeah, he's not gaining at all. I said it's not heavy enough. They should have stayed out. I mean, SCI have just done it to cover, just to be on the safe side, so they don't lose anything realistically to ETA. But they should have just stayed out with Tony. What did they have to lose? There's contact there between Ivan Eskrig and Sieb there on the medium tyres, trying to get a move done on the second AMR driver on the inside through the Curva Grande. Is it going to be a Grande move for IRT? See, the answer is no. It looks like even Eskrig is just going to hold on the inside lane into the second chicane. Indeed, he just about hangs on. Gap out in front is 6.8 seconds, and he's actually coming down quite quickly because Ward is on those 3-lap fresher hard tyres. Is he in a prime position? I don't see Otsozito getting a puncture. He'll have done 18 laps come the end. But they're not going to gain enough. This surely is done and dusted.
Yeah, the rain is falling a little bit heavier, but going through the second Lesmo, the sun was looking like it was just trying to peer through the clouds. I don't think moving to the Inter was a good idea for Tony Reich, and I think he probably got caught a little bit off guard by that. And as a result, as it stands, ETA are going to do a double, a double outscore on SCI in P10 and P11. Can you believe it? As it stands so far, the gap is going to be 106 between these two teams, which is just not enough. FRT are in a right smile from ear to ear at the moment. The issue is Samuel Barker has got a 10-second penalty to his name. If he didn't just do that speeding in the pit lane, what could have been for FRT?
Indeed, yeah. Obviously, we've got to remember as well, Sergio also has that 10-second time penalty of his own. So in the end, ETA and SCI are just going to negate each other from this feature race here, and it's just going to be honours even pretty much between the two of them. So yeah, I mean, they are closing in on, well, I say closing in on Thiago. Thiago obviously got the move done on Sergio, and obviously managed to get himself up into P9. So Yeah, I mean, out in front, gap is now 4.2 seconds. Ward's really closing in very quickly onto Otsazito. I would just think, just wants to get to the end of this race and take AMR's second win of the season on this penultimate lap for the penultimate time through Ascari. He's so gingerly taking it through there. He does not want to make any mistake, but look how quickly he's being caught up here by Ward. Could we see a potential swap on the final lap? I don't know, and David is also there as well for FRT. Can he steal a P2 or even maybe a win with 1 lap to go as Mateo gets the move done on Sergio? That is team orders there from ETA, and only with Sergio's penalty, if Mateo can at least well, he's obviously going to be ahead of Thiago with his own 3-second penalty to try and at least negate any little bit of damage that with that penalty that Sergio has. Final lap of this race, 2.8 seconds is the gap. Is it too little too late here for Wards?
It's too little too late, certainly for Ivan Eskrig and Samuel Barker, as Ivan Eskrig has finally got the move done on the man with the 10-second penalty, Samuel Barker. He's going to fall off a cliff when it comes to his final positions as it stands. But what a race this has been. Now, Otsazito is now starting to struggle with his internet connection. He's not going to really care about that one as it stands at the moment, as we're starting to get more time penalties coming in thick and fast. Mateo is not gaining at all on Thiago, of all people. He's been one of the slowest drivers on the field, but I'll be honest with you, these intermediate tyres haven't just switched on. I think they're burning out at the moment as well.
Yeah.
Everyone has been completely caught off guard. If you've decided that you want to try and do either the alternative 2-stop or do the 1-stop, it's been an absolutely cataclysmic opportunity for those drivers here, as David has managed to get the move done on Wards. That is critical for FRT. They need every point they can against Ventauri, who are at the moment only on for 3 points as it stands in this race. But what a race it has been. AMR are on their way now, not just to 1, not just to 2, not just to 3, but now their 4th podium of the season. 2 second places, 1 race victory in Austria, and has about another one for you. AMR have taken victory here tonight at the Italian Grand Prix. David finishes in P2 for FRT. RSC have got back-to-back podiums in this race from Ivan Eskrig. Samuel Barker falls down the standings. Sieb finishes in P5. Callum in P6. Barker down now to P7 as Boompai finishes in 7th. What a great effort from IRT. Mateo manages to get 8th from Samuel Barker, who will now finish in 9th, from Thiago in 10th, and Tony Reich and Jerome finishing 11th and 12th. What a poor race and poor weekend it has been generally for SCI in this particular race. But, yes, okay, Mateo's finished in P8. We've got people with losing positions left, right and centre, as Thiago's just rage quit from the session, so we don't know the final results. We'll know the final results imminently. But, you know, look, the situation report is the people who benefited best are the midfield runners once again. Fabulous in WR Legacy.
Indeed, and you know what, they have nothing to lose. I mean, yeah, obviously they're going to be battling for their own places in the championship standings, but they had nothing to lose. Why not go for it? Take a chance, take a risk. And Otsazito, you know, did the opposite to obviously to Tony Reich. He stayed out, saw the rest of them pit, and in the end, he hung on by, what was it, just what, 1.7, 1.8 seconds in the end from David there, who did a sterling job to get P2. But what a result for AMR, like you said, their second win of the season, 4th podium. And tell you what, they have been on a bit of a roll recently, and fair play to them. And Otsazito obviously deserves that. You know, he's been quick all race, he was second on the grid, and converted it into a race victory here tonight. Exactly what they wanted to cement 5th place in the standings.
Yeah, absolutely fabulous indeed as a result of this one. We're just getting the standings being updated, so I'll give you a quick clarity on that one in just a few short moments. But Otsazito and AMR, second race victory and 4th podium this season for the Visa Cash Grab Racing Bulls themselves. McLaren and their FRT David Band's doing a really good job, is David, as well this season. He's been fabulous to watch. He's P2 from Wards, who gets RSC's back-to-back podiums. What a fabulous result it is for them. Down towards the back of the field, of course, there is the rest of the field. Mateo finishing in P8 in the end. Sergio in P14. I'm not sure what happened to him there. It might be the 10-second penalty. Yes, it is the 10-second penalty that was applied afterwards. So SCI have managed to at least gain some positions back on that one. But what a mixed bag of results that one is. We'll get the final, the provisional table as a result of this one. But I think I'm now seeing ET8s have managed to what's the points difference? The points difference before this race, if I am not mistaken, was 110, and as a result of that, the points difference now between SCI and ETA is 110. Can you believe it?
Yes. So yeah, they've just negated each other by pitting onto the intermediates there. So it's no change obviously going into the feature race. I mean, in the end, ETA did close in obviously from their better sprint race results, but that is an opportunity lost. And yeah, like we said, they threw all their eggs in one basket. I mean, I guess in the end, by pitting Tony Reish, they haven't lost anything, and I think SCI, they've covered ETA just to, not take any chances, but they actually could have extended that gap back to near enough where it was initially. But again, can you blame them for not taking that chance? I mean, yes and no. But what it has done is it's opened the window for other teams, obviously, to take advantage and to, get onto the podiums and take race victories, and AMR have certainly done that. And what was a torrid start to the season for them is certainly turned out to be a much better one.
Right, so I'm just going to give you a quick rundown, folks, of the situation. So that race was completely pointless for SCI and ETA. They've not gained or lost anything on each other after all of that one, and their points difference, as I said, remains at 110. However, we have new sitters in P3. FRT are now third in the standings. They're on 304 and 430 points back from SCI, but 23 points back is now Ventauri from that result. As a result of that one, Ventauri have now lost P3 in the standings, and the Future Racing Team, another OG of the esports sphere, managing to get P3 is a great result from them so far. With 2 rounds to go, is that 23 points going to be enough to at least give them some confidence going into Saudi Arabia? AMR are 5th as a result of that one. We know that they're going to be in 5th, but they've extended their gap to IRT, who themselves have not had a particularly bad race. 5th and 7th, respectively, for them, puts them at a massive points haul over RSC. But just AMR's valiant effort from the team, from the drivers, has just resulted in what is now a big points haul for them. And would you believe as well, I'm just going to put this one on the radar, they are now, if my math works out right, that is a 40, I'm just trying to do the math on this one, sorry. I think that is a 37 point difference between Ventauri and AMR. And if that is the situation, then has AMR just welcomed themselves into the battle for P4?
I wouldn't rule it out. I would certainly not rule it out, based off what's happened here tonight. And obviously, that's 2 podiums in the last 3 races. And they obviously did that earlier on in the season, getting a 2nd in round 5 and then obviously winning at Austria 2 rounds later. They've done the same again, 2 races ago and then winning again here tonight. I wouldn't put it out of the equation for them, but they're going to have a bit more luck going into Jeddah and Abu Dhabi in the final 2 rounds of races of the season. But they keep that sort of performance up. It certainly is a possibility. Obviously, Ventauri will be kicking themselves from their poor showing here tonight. Obviously, not only just losing P3 to FRT, but obviously potentially coming under a little bit of threat from AMR. But they'll be going back to the drawing board and thinking, what could they have done differently? Where can they improve for the final 2 rounds of the season? But 2 rounds to go though, Jota. It's been an enthralling season, and well, we go again next week. And do we repeat it? Can it be wrapped up next week, or can ET8 do a little bit of a Hail Mary, let's say in NFL terms, and take it to Abu Dhabi?
Potentially. That is going to be the question. I'm going to keep a very firm eye, though, on the midfield as well. I mean, yes, they may have lost a little bit of ground to the likes of AMR, but RSC, back-to-back podiums for them now. That's really, really good stuff. And what is extending now, despite the fact that it's been a very SCI-dominant season, WOR Legacy has still demonstrated that podiums can be given to a lot of teams, mainly because every single team this season, other than QRT, have been on the podium this season. Of course, TF10 getting their first podium in Japan. Then you had EVR, I think, 3rd in Australia. Double podium, back-to-back podiums, rather, for RSC in Japan and, of course, here in Italy. Race win for IRT over in Britain. And then we've now got 4 podiums now for AMR. There's 2 podiums for Ventauri. Despite the fact they were P3 for a long part of this championship, Ventauri have only had 2 podiums, one in Hungary round 2, and Azerbaijan, they won it. And FRT, of course, won in Monaco. They've got second. That's their second podium this season. Can you believe it? After all of this with FRT, have been holding on. Ventauri and FRT have been fabulous to watch this season. Of course, the main bulk of this racing at the front has been between ETA and SCI, and in the end, it is honours even between the 2 teams. 110 points, 734 plays 624. This is before we get, of course, into our stewarding inquiries, which, of course, there'll be more about the stewarding inquiries, no doubt, from Joseph and the social media team over at WOR League. Give us a follow on X, formerly known as Twitter. We will be taking a trip to Saudi Arabia next week, where we could be crowning the champion. Otherwise, it's going all the way to Abu Dhabi. Thanks for watching. What a great race that one was. We'll see you next time. Take care. Ta-ra.